interesting thing to talk about today, actually. Net neutrality, that whole thing. Don't forget, this most recent time that net neutrality was up for, it was being debated on whether or not it should be had, and everybody was flipping out. That wasn't the first time that it had done that. Because it done the same thing like a few years earlier, and people flipped out then too. And my general take on net neutrality so far, and usually the internet in general, is when people are freaking out and they're saying, oh my God, this is it, the sky's falling, it's the end of the internet as we know it, it'll never be the same. My general attitude is to say, whoa, just calm down, see what happens. At this point, net neutrality was, it was shot down. I'm not seeing a whole hell of a lot of difference on the internet. So that's one of those things where it's like, see, kind of told you, I'm not noticing much of a difference myself. I don't know about anybody else, but it wasn't really that big of a deal. So, unless it hasn't been fully implemented yet, or we haven't seen it, well, which could happen, I don't know. But in this case, this is not one of those cases where I'm feeling calm about this. I'm feeling like this could be dangerous in a lot of ways for a lot of people. So this story comes from Wired, and it's about Article 13 in Europe. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. I'm going to explain to you what it is right now. What is Article 13? The EU's divisive new copyright plan explained. Articles 11 and 13 of the EU's new copyright directive have stoked fears that memes will effectively be banned and platforms will need to pay publishers when people link to their websites. The European Parliament has voted in favor of a controversial new copyright directive that could force tech giants to do much more to stop the spread of copyrighted material on their platforms. The European Union directive on copyright and the digital single market, to give it its full name, is designed to update existing copyright laws for the internet age. Simply put, the directive on copyright places more responsibility on websites such as YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter to make sure that copyrighted material isn't legally shared on their platforms. Until now, the onus has mostly been on the copyright holders, usually the companies that produce audio, video, or written content to enforce copyright protection. But under the new law, this responsibility will shift onto the major platforms themselves. At the heart of the directive on copyright are two distinctive articles, divisive articles, Article 11 and Article 13, that have been dubbed the link tax and the meme ban articles, respectively. Critics of the directive on copyright argue that these articles mean that platforms will have to pay a fee to share a link to a news article and to have to start filtering and removing memes. But the directive on copyright isn't law yet. Still has to go through a series of steps before it becomes finalized as an EU directive, and then it still has to be implemented in law by member states. Okay, so what's everybody scared about here? Well, here's the deal. What they're doing right now, let's take YouTube, for example. They have a certain system in YouTube where if you put up a video that has a song in it from somebody else, or it has a picture in it that somebody else took, or a sound clip in it, or something like that. Well, what you can do if you're the owner of that song, let's say it's a song, is you can go and you can claim that, and then part of the revenue that it gets from YouTube goes to you. You get paid. This article is saying that in Europe, for European law, YouTube itself has to prevent that video from being online at all. And it's doing the same thing for Twitter. Now, here's the dangerous part of this, is that their copyright laws are they're so loose that it could mean anything. This could be interpreted to mean that if the reason they're worried about memes, when you put up a meme, did you take the picture? If you didn't, then it's got to be taken down off Twitter. Did you write the phrase? What I'm doing right now, reading this news article. Did I write that news article? No, that was written by, who? Was it by Wired? Well, see, now I'm obsessed with this. Who was this? Who did I just say that this was written by? Yeah, it was Wired. So Wired came up with this, and I read it. Well, under, this law that the EU is trying to get passed, this video would have to be taken down by YouTube. Now, here's the thing. It's not that bad because what they predict will happen is there's no way. There's no way for YouTube or Twitter or Facebook or any of these big, multi-social sites to actually have software that can pile through everything, finding things like quotes that have been said by someone else or links to news websites or pictures that you post that you didn't take. There's no way that a website or, a social media site can actually run a bit of software that can do that and then remove it. So likely what will happen instead, if the EU pushes for this, is places like YouTube will say, well, fine, since we can't actually keep track of this, and since it's not illegal anywhere else to upload this stuff, it's perfectly fine in America and Canada and a lot of other places, and so it's definitely not the whole world that's following your particular copyright example here. What we're going to do is we're just going to remove ourselves from Europe. That is kind of that's the feeling at this point. So I don't think it's going to affect Americans much, but if you're watching in Europe right now, you may have a problem. You may see a large portion of the internet disappear if this goes through, because there's no way. I mean, Twitter will just have to be shut down in Europe. They'll just have to be like, all right, well, any country that actually implements this law, we're just going to block ourselves from your country because that's the only way we know how to do it. And it's going to be the same with YouTube, with Facebook. And so, yeah, that's likely what's going to happen. Now, bad news for most of the world? No. Bad news for Europe? Yes. And in a certain way, that is bad news for the rest of us as well, because there are still people out there who do things to entertain Europeans. I mean, I have a lot of European watchers on this channel, on my gaming channel, and they won't be able to watch the videos anymore. So people who make content that Europeans watch, they may take a hit in their views, and thus the revenue that Google pays them. So that could wind up hurting, a lot more people than just Europe. That's going to wind up hurting content creators and people on Twitter who have a lot of European followers, and people on Facebook who have European followers. That's, Instagram is going to be the same way. So that's where it's going to sting a bit, no matter where you are. It's going to hurt Europe most, but that's going to have a ripple effect. That's going to pretty much, screw over everybody in the modern world who actually uses the internet, some of whom use it for business. If some of this was taken, like, say you have a website where you sell custom-made, I don't know, donkey dildos, but you've got a picture on the website of a donkey. You didn't take that picture. Well, now that website's got to be blocked from Europe. They can't show that in Europe. What if most of your customer base is in Europe? What if they really love donkey dicks in Europe? I don't know if they do. I have no idea. I've never seen one. It could happen, though. So there goes most of your revenue. So this is, it's going to be bad if this goes through, mostly for Europe, but also for a lot of other people as well. So I would suggest getting involved in this, getting active with this, and I mean, when possible, maybe go ahead and there are probably petitions out there already. I imagine there are. Sign that stuff, just be vocal about it. Say what you think about it, even though it is European law and Americans really don't have a hell of a lot to say about it. we can still voice our opinions on this and try to influence governments in the European Union not to implement this, because it would be super nuts if they did.